the mentor application open. So just wanted to remind you guys to sign up if you guys are interested in being mentors in this program. It's, you know, the mentors get multiple benefits, such as basically you guys are considered as paid members, even though you guys, like, without having to pay the membership fee for CSS. So you guys get all the benefits of being a paid member. And also, you know, you guys get the networking. It's a way for you guys to experience meeting other people in CS and also kind of just be a mentor to them. And as you're being a mentor, not only do you get to help them, but also help yourself review your basics and kind of fortify your foundations. And also, you know, it is a resume builder. You can definitely put that in your resume as kind of like a leadership position, or just a position that, you know, you are taking to be a part actively in on-campus activities and helping people around you, especially in CS, in the field of CS. And we do pair you guys up with people that are interested in the same field, so you're not going to be, you know, paired with someone that's not interested in what you're interested in. So we try our best to pair you guys with people that you can also form actual friendships with and create actual connections with. So we're hoping it's going to be a beneficial experience for you guys as well as mentors. So make sure you guys fill out that form. It's also linked in the chat. We will also be sending it out on Discord. So all the teacher interest form and the CSSMP form will be sent on Discord as well. So keep an eye out for that. And yeah, that was it on my end. Did anyone else have anything else to add? And let me know if you guys have any questions. You can put it in the chat or put it on Discord. I'll be sure to, one of us will reply to you guys. So let us know.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Marissa. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, any concerns, any comments, or like, you know, based on what our speaker is gonna present today, just feel free to put it in the chat or unmute your mic. And, you know, I think he can be happy to answer those for you, right?
Yep. How do we pay the membership fee?
Yeah, the membership fee. Can you contact Sandra regarding that, so that we don't? I just want to go into the details here, but yeah. So essentially, what it is that you Venmo the account and you mentions your number, your email, and yeah, your email and your names. So Sandra can help you out with that.
All right, thank you.
Yep. All right, so let's just get started, everyone. My name is Tuan. I'm the president for CSS, and alongside with me, we have in today's speaker, we have Deric, and he's going to be presenting with us on React JS. So Deric, I'll pass it to you.
All right, thank you. All right, so let's just begin here. Here we go. All right, so welcome to Getting Started with React JS. It's just gonna be like an intro, jumpstart introduction to how React works, just to get you started with like the philosophy of it. Because like learning a framework could be one thing, but learning the concept of it could be another. So yeah, so before we get into what React is, so let's just make some common grounds of what JavaScript is. So JavaScript is primarily a client-side language, meaning it only runs in your browser. And you seem to realize that there's a lot of applications today that doesn't run in your browser. And that's because due to the popularity of JavaScript, Node was created. And what Node.js is basically just a JavaScript runtime environment. It's not a library or anything. It allows us to run JavaScript on our machines. So moving to JavaScript, JavaScript is a front-end library for building user interfaces. Nothing more, nothing less. It's not a server that runs a full backend or anything. But having these knowledge, like having a brain, which hopefully we all do, HTML, CSS, some basic understanding of JavaScript, and then the document object model, which is the DOM that powers the HTML that you see displaying on the websites mostly. And the philosophies of React.js is that it's declarative, mostly pointing at JavaScript, how there's like pre-made functions to get things done. And you really don't care how it's getting done, but you just want to get it done and it's the same results. It's component based, and it follows this ideology of dry, which is don't repeat yourself. So having this most abstract component and making it so you can use it for anything you can until you can't, then you make another component. The ReactJS code is similar code base for other mobile app applications or desktop. So for desktop, you'll be using React DOM with Electron, or for mobile websites, for mobile apps, you'll be using it with React Native, which can be used for both iOS and Android, which is pretty cool. So once you write multiple code bases just for the same application. So just for a disclaimer, I'll be going over the functional components of it. And I don't think we have time to cover class-based components, since this is mostly like a crash course of a jumpstart understanding of React JS. So just to give like a little exercise, what is a component? Because that could be pretty vague here. So this is an example of Facebook's page here. Don't worry, I'm not doxing anyone. This is just like a sample page. So there's a navigation bar up here. There's this home section, and then there's the stories. What happens is that these components are separate individuals, and they come together. So you can see here, this navigation could be potentially a component in React, and this home section could be a component in React, and then inside component could have subcomponents, and that goes on. It can have a nested amount of components, and there's like literally no stopping of how long it goes. It's basically like a tree. So this could be a subcomponent of that. So it could be a button, and then you don't want to write the same code exactly. If it has the same functionality, then you could just literally just copy and paste, and then change the data that's on it. So just setting up the environment here. So this is mostly like just like a watch, then you learn, then you do it afterwards, because we're going pretty fast, and we only have 45 minutes or an hour to do it. So the first thing I'm gonna do is download Node.js, which you download from nodejs.org, which would, I believe, automatically install the Node package manager. And what that does, it installs the dependencies for it. If you're using Linux or Unix, for Linux, it comes with brew, so you just do brew install node. But for Unix, for like Mac OS, you have to install brew from .sh, and then you can install it from there. And one way to check if you installed Node or not is just do node .v, and it comes out. And then you want to make sure that you have the Node package manager to install dependencies for it, like Java. Not Java. React will be a component that is a dependency.
Okay.
Let me just go back here. And to initialize a JavaScript boilerplate for the React dev team, they made a really quick command just to like install everything for React, which is npm install /g, which is for global, create React app. And I already done this, but if you haven't, you could do that. So to create a whole boilerplate for ReactJS, what you do is, I'm going to do this along here. Is npx, and it's not a typo or anything. Create React app. I'll just move this here actually, and then the directory of where you want it to be at, or the folder or the path. So let me call it hello React. And it just takes a while to compile everything and build the whole directory. So as that gets ongoing, I will show you how the file structure works in ReactJS. And this is our directory we just created. Just a README node modules, that stores all the dependencies. You usually do not want to edit or touch anything that's in this directory, because you can literally just break something, and there's no need to touch it. This is just automatically generated. The package.json is the metadata containing your application. So if someone wants to install your applications, if you have your package.json, they could literally just do npm install and install it for you. This is like a Node.js thing. The public directory, which houses the actual DOM of the HTML for your JavaScript, the React.js to run your application. And here's the index.html. it actually runs it.
So that's probably the first time when you create the React app, right? This is all the folder it contains in there.
Yeah, and then here's a source where you'll be mostly working in. There's the CSS, which is like the styling and stuff if you don't know. And here's the app.js, where is our root tree for our virtual DOM for React. And then index.js actually initializes app.js and push it to the index.html. So this right here. And I'll be getting to what how it looks like inside. And then there's like these crap stuff that we're not gonna touch.
Yeah,
but,
we're not gonna touch any of that.
Yeah, so it's graded. And hopefully it's done. All right, here we go. So you're given this prompt here. It's pretty really a beginner's guide, really easy, accessible for beginners. So we're just going to change directory into hello React, and we're going to do npm start. Just took a little while. Here you go. And then we literally just compiled our first React app here. And that's how basically or easily is to do it. It's pretty cool. And then, so just kill the application here and let me run it through VS Code. So we can edit the file here.
Yeah, so basically what you see on the screen right there is just the starting applications, right? It's whatever in the applications.
And from here, you could literally just delete this and be like, hello CSS. And there's hot reload. So the moment you save it, it would change direct. Okay, wait a minute. I didn't run the application. All right, npm start, which is the way to initialize the project itself or to run it. So you can see here in a moment, it's gonna refresh here. And my computer's dying. All right, here we go. So hello CSS, and then you change it LL, and then it chooses automatically. So that's pretty cool. You know, it's really good for trial and error and stuff. So let's just delete all this crap here because we don't really need it. So I'll be doing mostly live coding, but I forgot to mention, we do have a demo and the repo for it. The slides is inside the README. I will send it through the comments. So you can check that out or follow along, do the code. But I don't think we'll be covering everything inside the demo because due to time constraints. But I will show you like most the things that's covering in the slides. So the first thing we'll do is let me just get into the slides here. And we'll be covering components. So components are a way to store JSX, which JSX is a mix of JavaScript and XML together. So you can manipulate XML on the spot of your JavaScript application or your JavaScript, where is it at? And this is really nice because you get the best of both worlds. When you return something, you're returning JSX, which it's basically like HTML if you ever mess with it. And then whatever you return here will be returned into your browser and it will be displayed. So just show you guys here. These are outside. So let's just do hello React here just to show you that it still works. And let's create our first component. So this is going to be a functional component in React. And it's nothing more than just creating a normal function in in JavaScript. So if we do post, let's create a post component. And let's return some JSX. So in HTML, there's a tag called div, which is basically a divider. And you can literally add CSS is cool. And once I save it, nothing really happens because I didn't call it. And let's call it here. So how to call it is basically you wrap it around with tags, like how you do with HTML. But when you close it, you do a dash and an arrow here, or a greater than sign. And there it is, CSS cool. The great thing about this component is it's reusable. So if you copy and paste it and you just spam it, it comes out CSS cool. And what you're thinking right now is, okay, this is cool enough, but how do I pass in data through here? And there's something called properties. And to give you a little visualization of how properties work, and a disclaimer here is I got a photo here. So React is a one-way data flow. So there's a root here, which it's actually located inside of your index.js right here. And you can see how it's using the React DOM, which is what powers us using the web, and it renders. This makes it on to use strict mode. And then you can see how it's calling our app, which is from app.js, which we just messed with just now. And it's just literally just calling it from here. And this is our root. And you see there's like a comma here that's separated. And the second argument of render is where it's being located at. And if you were to look into public index.html, you can see how there is actually a root ID here that says root. And if you look into the expect of this, you realize that it's literally the same thing here. There's the root and there's the app. The app is this. So that's pretty cool. And it just, when you compile it, it builds down into what the browser can actually understand and not what Node can understand. All right, so where's my thing here? So about data. So how you pass in data is you can only go down one way. So let's just say this is our component 1, component 2, component 3. This is basically a tree that you learn in CS 24,000 or 2400. Basically, this is basically nodes, and then you could make more nodes inside the subnodes, and so you could pass in data through in here, and it can only go down, not up. So that's the catch here. So how we pass in data is a pretty cool way. So so since this is a function, we could actually specify. So let's just put in some parameters or some attributes, what you will call it in HTML. So let's just name it. Let's see here what we got. Body, or let's do title for now. So you actually just declare the value and the key. So this is the key for it, the title, and let's put Bob is lit. And right here in this function, we can pass in something called props, which stands for properties. And if you were to console log here, nothing really happens. I didn't really call anything here. But in the console, you can see it returns an object. And that object returns a key and a value, which has title and Bob is lit. And this is really cool because you actually add more than one attributes or props. Let's do body here. And we could do Deric with here. And you can see here, it returns a new object that contains two key and value, which is Deric was here, and then Bob's lit. So how would I use this? How would I display it on this browser here? And you might try and do props dot name. Since this is an object, we just index it inside. Oh, not name actually. Title. And what you realize is that it just like shows up directly on the browser, and that's not how you do it. For JSX, there's a special way of converting back into JavaScript. So I could actually just do console log here and be like, hi. And then it just come out hi. So that's cool. So it returns and it runs JavaScript inside these curly braces. Oh my God, Ben, come on. And so what we could do is we could do props.title. Let me just remove this. And it actually comes out Bob is lit. You can see right here. It's kind of like inlined, but here it is, Bob is lit. What we could also do is we could do it with a body. So we'll just wrap it around a div so it creates a new line here.
So you're accessing the properties using the closing bracket, right?
Yes,
or
yes.
Opening and closing.
But normally in this curly braces in here, you could access anything that's containing JavaScript. You could literally run JavaScript code inside these curly braces.
I see.
So you can see here, Bob is lit, Deric is cool. And that's how you pass in data into your properties. I mean, into your properties, into your components. And you don't really need this logo here. That was just the React logo. So that's all cool. So what happens if this component gets way too large? So that's when code splitting gets into here. So if you look into this app.js, it's actually exporting app here, which is exporting this function, and it calls this. So let's just move this so it's by itself. So what we do here is create a new folder here called components. And it doesn't really matter, components. It doesn't really matter what you name it. It's just like a file structure that you could follow. And you can just do just make it easier for us to understand. Let's create a folder here called post. Inside this file, we call it post.getjs. I mean, yeah. And then let me just open this a little more bigger. And we just paste this in. And then what happens is it will return you a failed to compile. And the reason why it failed to compile is because you need to export this this function here. Export default, and then the name of your function. And once you do that, you go into turn this off. And you see how it's just like underlying here. You just need to import it into your actual app. So import post from, and then the path of where you put your component. And there you go. It works like normal. Now you have different files and using the same application. So that's really cool, really neat. Way to make your code more cleaner and readable. And you can obviously make more components here and edit the data here. There was not here. And it actually just returns you the same component but different data. So that's pretty neat here. Yes. Okay. So there it is. So next thing I'm going to talk about is states. So how do we store in variables and stuff like that? That could be like a really beginner's problem. Is like, how do we, like, do I go in here and be like, let count equals 0? And when you realize that this doesn't really work because it doesn't trigger React's lifecycle or the re-rendering of React's tree or JSX. So this might not return this part here. So let's just give you a demonstration how that works. So let's just get rid of post here. And let's do, let's just print this out, right? Let's do div and do count by variable and type on string. Okay, variable and count. So we're basically just displaying the variable count. Nothing really special here. And let's just try to increment this. So we're gonna pass in a button, and we're gonna give a text button value of increase. So that just basically create this button here. So to create event handlers, you just how you would do it with normal HTML on click, which is like a different, it's camel paste, but normally isn't, I believe. And this takes in a lambda function, a lambda expression. And you could actually just do and when you realize that when you increase this value, nothing really happens. But if you were to console log this value here, so let me just do console log count. Nothing happens again. Because if you were to expect this and go console, it actually does increase the value under the HUD. So when I click on it, increase. But the problem here is that it doesn't trigger a render. This doesn't recall React to, hey, dude, there's something changed. Let me just refresh this whole page that we're working on. It doesn't do that. So that's why there's something called hooks. And then hooks is a general topic where you could create your own way of interacting with React itself. So let's just import something called useState from React. And so this is kind of funny syntax here, but we could do const, and this useState returns 2 arguments: a read-only value, which is you can access, and then there's a write. So we do set counter. So this is a function, set counter, and then counter is a variable where it's only for reading. And then you do useState, and then the initial value. And since counter is a number data type, we just put 0. And let me just create 2 points here so you can see it side by side. Let's do by state, and then we're going to set this to counter, and let's do counter and counter. So okay, so we have this, but when I click on it, it'll give me an error because counter here is only read only, and there's a reason why there's a set counter here. So what we're going to do here is we'll just delete all this crap here and put set counter. So this is a function, and you could do counter plus 1. So this is the new value that you want to store inside of counter. And there you go. So you see how increase for variable doesn't do anything because you're not triggering a re-render here. And what I mean by a re-render is I could do a console.log I, and we could look into expect here. You see every time when I trigger, so the first time it will obviously be render, so that's why it says high. But if you increase the value here, you can see how it prints out. It prints out every single time you call high. And that's because it's recalling this return every time when you change a state. So that way it reacts. That's why it's called React, because it reacts to the vector DOM. So that's pretty cool. Hopefully I'm on schedule. All right. So the next thing is, that's pretty cool, and there's state and stuff. So let's just say we're going to fetch data, right? It's because the most practical reason you would use a front-end library is just to fetch data and display to the client. So what we're going to do here is we're going to fetch some dummy data from JSON placeholder, JSON, because I always call it JSON. I don't know why. But
Dude, I did the same thing.
Yeah. So this basically just dummy data we can have access to and play around with. So there's something. So let's just introduce something called, before we do that, let's introduce something called use effects. This is another hook that allows us to interact with React in a special way, and we could just dump it in here. So actually, just delete this account here. And let's do use effects. And again, this takes in a lambda expression. And let's do a console log. And if you go into your React app and you console log here, you can see how it prints out yeet. But if you increase the value, you can see every time when you increase it, it triggers whatever's in this function right before it renders, which is a great thing for fetching data, because when you want to fetch the data first before you actually render the application. And let's just say, actually, I should just explain it later, but that's pretty much what use effect does. So let's fetch the data here. So what we're going to be using is Axios. So Axios is just a way to fetch data outside of, fetch data through APS and stuff. So let's just install it. So this is how you install dependencies. So you do npm install, and then let's do Axios here. You could use something called fetch, which is like a built-in function, but just to show you how Axios work too. So it's gonna install it here and show you guys. All right, so it's installed, and now we could actually just import it directly into here. So Axios. Actually, yeah, wait, no, Axios from Axios. Funny how we're using the same name, but yeah, that's how it works. So wait, see here. Okay, so what we do here is, since there's promises in JavaScript and async and await, we kind of want to use that for making fetch requests, because we don't want the requests to pause the whole application for us. We want the application to be running on the side while it's loading the data. So that's why we're going to be using async, which I'm not really covering in this topic. So hopefully it doesn't really confuse you. So we can do async function, and we're going to do fetch post. And inside this fetch post, we're going to do a try and a catch, just to prevent any errors from happening, or catch any errors from happening. So do console.log error, or let's do console error. And right here is we're going to use a sync and wait. So let's do const response. It's going to return our response, and this is a wait, which tells JavaScript to, hey, dude, wait here and wait until when I'm done and you come back to me. So let's put in axios.get, and then this is the URL that you want to pass in. So let's go here, and I want post. And let's do post 1, just so it's not overwhelming. And let's print this out. So let's do console log response. And we're going to go in here and do fetch post. So let's inspect this because it's in our console here. And let's see if this actually works.
I think so. Essentially,
oh yeah, I forgot to call it.
Okay, so essentially, you're calling before you render.
Yeah,
call,
definitely. Yeah. I'm calling before I'm rendering. That's what use effect is.
Okay.
So before it mounts this HTML, it calls whatever is in use effect.
Got it.
And then here it is. So we have our endpoint here, and what we really want is this data here. So what we can do is just index through to data, and you can see it prints out what we actually want, not all these metadata here. So that's cool enough. But let's say we want to use it. We want to display this this value. So what we want to do is you want to use state that we just learned here, and we want to store this value inside of it's our state. So what we do is we call it post and then set post. And then these are just variables, but by convention, we want to set it by the read value of what you would normally name the variable, and then set to whatever the variable. And since the initial value of this is going to be an object, so you want to do an empty object. And you see there's some errors here because counter is not defined anymore. Let's just remove it. And let's store the data we just got into set post. Response.data. And now we can access this state anywhere now. So I could actually go in here and do, so we're going to use the curly braces to access JavaScript post.title. And there we go. And if you cross-reference this is actually the title from here. And since it returns everything here, so we can just do and that returns the body of it right here. And since we created our post component on top of here, we can actually just utilize that. So we could do post, and then we could do title, and then we actually use the curly braces post.title. And we do body here. We do post. Ah, crap, lagging here. And then we just delete this. So what I'm doing, I'm passing our state into the props, and then this component is going to have the data that we want. And it does exactly the same thing. You refresh it, and then we could print here and display a crap ton of data here. That's pretty cool and pretty useful. And most of the time you'll be fetching data, and then you'll be manipulating the data that you just fetched. And before I end talking about use effect, there's actually a problem here, and that every time when you re-render, you're actually calling use fetch. So let me just I shouldn't have to leave the set counter. I'm an idiot. Button and just do nope, not button. On click. So I just want to invoke set counter. And then let's do like 5 here. Let's do increase. So every time I click on it, nothing happens. I just want to trigger our DOM here. So every time when I click on increase, and this is great. So yeah, I'm calling here. Actually, screw it. So we can see here, it triggers the render. And every time when you trigger a render here, you see how it's refreshing the data every single time. And that's a bad thing, because if you're making more requests for no reason, you're requesting too much data from your REST API, and you're gonna have like a large bill. So that's gonna be a problem. What you could do is there's a second parameter here, and that if you put an empty brackets here, which is like an empty array, it will render only one time when you load in this component. So if I were to refresh this, let me just clear this console here. If I were to refresh this, and if it could load in, there we go. Okay, I called it too much time, and it just loads in one time. So if I do increase, that's just where am I doing this? Oh, here it is. That's V, and calling it here. Yeah. So let me make sure I have this correct. Wait, what? Is this even?
I think you're locking the response data, right?
Yeah. So it should only happen one time.
Okay.
Okay. So I increase the value here, and that's weird. Oh yeah, because wait, what the? That's weird. Huh. So what normally should happen is that this should only call it once. But yeah, so that's weird. I'm not sure what I messed up on.
Okay.
But yeah, so when you put a brackets here, it indicates that anything that's inside here will pick up the use effect. So it will call the use effect. But if it's empty, it won't call it. So only call once, which for some reason that didn't happen. But all right, so that's cool and all. But how do we populate more than one data? So before we get into that, I will actually have some pre-made components here. So let me just delete this and paste in post, which I created, and then here's a comment here. So what I just pasted in was just basically what we covered. We pass in props, and we pass in props ID, the props email, and the name, and the body, and the same thing for posts. So we got our title, your body, and it's just more refined, but the same concept.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll be fetching our comments here. And before we do that, let me just clean up this here. So now it's all black and white here. And let's see, post and coin post here. All right. All right. So let's try populating our buttons here, our comments here. So let's remove this button here. And we want to populate a large amount of data. So we're going to call posts 1 and then comments. So we're going to fetch all of this and try to populate it all at once. So we're going to loop through our data, our response, and just populate it. So I'm going to do it like a do it pretty manual, so we don't want to copy and paste like this. So let's try that. So we're gonna create a new state called comments. And use states. And you can see here, this actually returns an array. So you see there's like brackets here surrounding it. So that's our initial. And same idea here. We're gonna copy this. And we're just gonna fetch comments. Sure, I have the URL correct. All right, I'll fetch comments. And then this is gonna set the comments here, which we just declared are comments in here.
Mm-hmm. So you're setting up the post and the comment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So if you look into our console here, is there a reason why this didn't? Oh, I didn't call it. Ha ha ha. That's funny. Comments. And then you can see how it returns our comments here, and it comes out as an array. So that's pretty cool. And great things about array is we can iterate into them. So we set into our state of comments. And now what we could do is, like I mentioned, there's the curly braces. And what we do with inside this curly braces is that it's going to be in JavaScript. So we could do comments, which is an array now because we passed in an array of objects. And then there's a special function in JavaScript where you could do map. And that basically what iterates through into this array, and it returns every single element inside of it. So you can do data. And then data is the individual element. And we could do return. Actually, this is console log this before we even do that. Data. And let's just remove this here so it doesn't confuse us. Clear console and refresh. And you can see that individual posts get separated now. And the neat thing about this is how it's separated, that we can now return. Before I even do that, I need to import the comment component here. And this did not get called. All right, what's going on here? Oh yeah. So now just call comment. And there's our styling that I pre-made. So if you look in here, I already remade this. This is not the focus. CSS not the focus. So that's why I just like jumped the gun there. But now for comments, if you look into our console, come on. Oh yeah, I didn't even console log this. Log data. And I'm gonna inspect it. And you can see here, there's post ID, name, email, and all that stuff. So let's do body here. Actually, where's comments? So just drag this here. So we could reference it side by side. And do email. And we do data.email. And what we want to do is name. So we do name data.name. And lastly, the body. So we do body, data, and then body. And now you can see how it gets populated. So all this data here is being fetched directly from here.
Nice.
And then this is the actual post of itself. So that's why it's a little more bloated in the beginning. But this is the comments here. And yeah.
Cool.
And I think that's pretty much it. Hopefully I didn't go too fast. But
I mean, there's a lot of information, but hopefully, let's just summarize the whole, list of what we do. So, what did you just do in this talk, in this speaker or talk?
So what I cover is components. So the general idea of what components is and how reusable it is, and one of the main selling points of what React is that you can reuse components and you can put this most abstract layer and conquer and divide, and then put it back together, I guess. And well, the most important thing you want to take away of this is that React is a one-way data flow, so you cannot get data from the top. I mean, from the bottom to the top. We cover properties, how to pass properties into how to pass in data into your subcomponents. And from here, you can see how app, we pass in the title, which is learn by doing. The fully component is being hands-on. And then there's learn by watching. The fully component is about Zoom. And then that gets populated here. You see, I pass in the props. And that props get access through these attributes of component. States. So I give you an example of using states without using, storing variables and using state instead. So that's why this is not to use variables for storing dynamic data. But you can still use what's called variables. But the problem with that is that it doesn't cause a render and people can't see it. So that's why when you click on it, it actually does increment the value, but it doesn't display anything. But when you use state, you can see how it does actually render here. And I'm incremented from here. Use effects is another React hook to connect or talk to the React DOM, which is the document object model. So whenever it gets refreshed, it will call it. And this is great use for fetching data. And this is pretty much 90% what you'll be using for use effects. There's the method 2, where again, if you add the empty what's called array, that will render once. And then whatever you pass in inside of this array, it will actually render. So it's like a whitelist, basically. And that's what we did. We just fetched using Axios, which Axios is a promise-based HPPT client. Or if you feel like that's a little more too unnecessary, you could use fetch, which is a built-in a built-in way to fetch data. So example of this would be copy that and paste it into this code here. That did not copy. Move the comments here. So I'm going to fetch Kanye quotes from in REST API of Kanye REST, and we're gonna do fetch Kanye. And this is a different way of doing fetch. So I'm using the actual fetch function that's provided by Node, and it's literally the same thing here. When you go into our React app, oh man, this is messy. And the console here, and then who made up the term major label in the first place, and that's Kanye's quote. So that's what printed out. So that's pretty cool. You can use both, but for larger projects, you want to use Axios just to manage and not just boilerplate being used. That's pretty much it. So I hope you guys understand what I said, and hope you guys took away at least half of what is being taught in this workshop. So thank you for allowing me to host this.
Thank you so much, Deric. Yeah, I mean that's plenty of informations, and
yeah, there's a lot. Yeah. It was when you told me to cover this in 45 minutes. I was like, holy crap!
Yeah, it's gonna be like I understand it's gonna be a lot, but just for like overall introductions, you did a very well job. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so this is definitely an introduction. This is not for you to like master React. Now you can build full-fledged applications. So yeah.
All right. Yeah. If anyone have any questions, feel free to write in the chat. And yeah, I'm like really excited. This is gonna be going on our YouTube channel. So if you guys want to check it later, the code is also on our GitHub. So thank you so much, Deric, for posting that. And yeah, I will pass it on to Parista. She has some announcements she want to make.
Yeah, Deric, thank you so much again for the presentation. It was a lot, but it was very interesting to see it all and be able to kind of follow along. And I think, yeah, if any of you guys have any questions, make sure you guys can drop it in the chat right now, or you can always refer back to this video because we will be posting it on our YouTube. I just wanted to hop on real quick and then just say the announcements that I made at the beginning of the call again, just for the people that weren't there at the start before you guys leave right now. So our t-shirt forms will be due by midnight on Sunday. So we'll be sending the links both here in this chat right now, and also we'll be posting it on Discord later. So keep an eye out for that. So the t-shirt forms will be due by Sunday midnight. And we also have our CSS MP, the mentor application, still open. So for the mentees, the application is closed. But for those of you guys interested in signing up for the mentor position, that is still open. And again, there are multiple benefits for being a mentor. Like I mentioned earlier, you do get the benefits of a paid member without having to pay the fee if you sign up to be the mentor. And obviously networking, leadership position, experience, and just connections. It's always a good thing to take part actively in a club and be part of programs that we offer. And yeah, and for those of you guys who didn't sign in already, make sure you guys also